But yet God would work through Asa mightily. However, there's such an important lesson here, friends, because you see, Asa had built up the walls, he'd fortified the cities, he'd trained the armies in times of peace. That logic would have had that he would have been ready for anything. He would have been ready for whatever any neighboring country or enemy would come to try to attack them. He was ready. But yet, we see there that even though he had done all this preparation, at the very end of the day, he did not rely on himself. Even though he had done all that he could humanly do, train the troops, build up the cities, get ready for war, he was probably more ready than any other worldly country out there that did not rest upon God. He had done all these preparations, but yet when the time came, he says, God, we're nothing. We're nothing. Unless you fight for us, we cannot have victory. And so in his humility, he never allowed all this preparation. He never allowed all this success, all these blessings from God, the rest from all his enemies. He never allowed any of that to get to his head. Even though he knew that God was with him, even though it was clear to everyone else that God was with him, even when the time came for war, Asa did not rest upon his own efforts, but he said, God, you have to help us. And it was because of that, they gained a mighty victory. They gained much spoil. God blessed them so much. And then, when they saw that God was fighting for them, they would go out and do their part in fighting this battle. You know, friends, many times salvation is like this. It all depends upon God. Without God, we can do nothing. But does it mean that when it comes to salvation, we just sit there and do nothing? If we want to have victory over some debasing habits, maybe it's smoking or getting drunk all the time and going out and drinking and partying, does it mean that we just sit there and the effort should all be God's? No. God, He will help us. He's the only one that can give us the victory. But we must put in earnest effort to do our very best within the human capabilities that God has given to us to work and cooperate with God. And whether that's cutting off some of our friendships, that's throwing out our ashtray, resisting the desire to want to go to the petrol station and buy the cigarettes or the lighter or whatever it is, we got to throw out all those things that tempt us. It's not going to float out by itself, right? This is salvation by cooperation. After we have prayed, God, give me the victory over it, we got to get up and by His strength work with Him. And so we see this in the life of Asa. We see this, that even though he prepared all that he could do humanly possible, when the time came for war, he rested his whole life, his whole foundation, upon God alone. And God would be the one that would give them this signal victory. But even though he had all this great victories, you know, friends, the victories of yesterday will never give us confidence for today unless there are fresh springs that come from God and they overflowing again into our lives. We cannot look to the past to say God is still with us. Even though we gained the victory just last week, doesn't mean that God is still with us today. No. Every single day there must be fresh experience, fresh victories, because however much you spent for the love that you have for your wife last year does not equate to anything this year. Every day must be a fresh experience. And you know, friends, we may in 5 minutes undo all that we've done in 50 years. And then furthermore, in that 5 minutes, take another 50 years to come back to what we wanted to do or be before.